All right. Today on the Shrewd Dudes podcast, we are going to talk about a few different things. In This Week in Satire, we are going to address Transition Me Elmo, the new toy from Hasbro and Sesame Street.
How about no?
Yeah, how about no? In the rest of the week, we are going to address how, the left just doesn't care about whether they harass and intimidate and threaten and hack and use personal information and do all sorts of things like that, as long as the person that they're doing it to is conservative.
Yeah, well, there's no moral equivalency.
No moral equivalency. In Nothing to See Here, I'm going to talk about how the global agenda is moving against children swiftly. Not only amongst the UN, but also on TikTok. And then finally, in our weekly highlight and weekly exposure, we're going to showcase an older gentleman who stands up for his principles and what he believes in, and then another person who also stands up for what they believe in, but what they believe in is violence. So all of that and more on the Shrewd Dudes podcast. Okay, hold on. I'm going to restart this. Alrighty, so we are back for another week for our Thursday live stream. So I know it's been 2 weeks since last we streamed, but that's just the way it is sometimes. Last time we were here, it was 2 weeks ago, and then last week we went and did the reading with True Royalty with our old church, Fairview Baptist. That was actually quite a bit of fun. Yeah. And they read some really good stories, and we talked about some plans that we have for the future about cantering Drag Queen Story Hour with some good old-fashioned biblical readings on gender and sexuality. So these are good things to promote, and we thoroughly encourage them. And, of course, seeing as how I am back on wearing the jersey, it is in the playoffs, and the Leafs have now won Game 2 of 7!
I'm getting ready for the insufferable Steven, which will basically be for like a month worth of like Steven
if we go past round 2, because now that the playoffs have started, I'm gonna try and grow my Scraggle out by like probably another 3 millimeters, because that's about as far as it's gonna go.
Oh, he's ready
for my playoff beard.
Can you actually grow a beard? Is that actually a thing for you?
Right
Some
here,
people can't. Some people
and here,
can't actually grow beards.
And right here. I can't do here. Okay. Nothing grows there.
Nice to know.
Okay, no, there is stuff that grows there, but it is like blonde.
Okay.
So it doesn't really matter because nobody can see it. Because this stuff is like brown and black, and this stuff is blonde, and so it just looks really silly. But anyways,
I know a lot of people, including my nephew. My nephew cannot grow regular facial hair, so he's actually growing a mustache. And I'm like, I can grow like the perv stash. It looks good on him. There's people who can actually pull off a mustache and people who cannot, but he definitely can. Yeah, I'm one of those weird people that I can actually grow fairly decent like facial hair, but I don't like facial hair, so I'm a waste. I'm a waste of the facial hair community.
A waste of the facial... Well, I'm not going to deny you.
I'm on the bench.
So, yeah. I'm going to... just need to log in to Twitch.
Oh, he's logging in. Making it all happen.
Of course. Looks like you're trying to log in from a new device or location.
Yeah, you're up to no good. I knew it.
Apparently.
So there we go. Yod. Okay, how do you pronounce that? Yod 5.
Yod 512. Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's supposed to be like an actual name or just like a whole bunch of like random letters.
Well, okay, so that was kind of going back to when I was a kid.
Okay. Is there a reference?
Yes.
I'm missing? What's the reference?
Really shave is about being natural.
That's right.
I cannot pull if I try and pull the natural look, it's horrifying. Because okay, here. I will actually find for you. I will find for you. No, I don't have a picture. I have a video.
I was gonna say you're going to like you're going to scar many people for life.
Yeah.
Wrong picture. The thing is for me. Okay, here's the thing that's weird for me. I found this out recently that when I grow like facial hair now, because I'm past a certain age, my facial hair does not come in colored anymore. It's weird. I actually like my hair, my regular hair, it grows perfectly like redheaded, right?
Yeah.
And only a little bit on the sides, a little gray. The rest of my when I grow my beard, it actually looks gray, and I'm like, dang, like that now is like double the reason not to grow that thing. I'll basically look like a weird almost like a like Santa Claus on the bottom and I don't know, Archie on the top. Yeah. It just seems like it would not be a good idea. But what were you gonna say?
Oh no, I'm trying to find the
video
because I made a 2-year anniversary video.
Oh, you did? Well, that's exciting.
But because that's the 2-year anniversary video has the
sorry, anniversary of what?
Anniversary of the show.
Oh, that's cool. I thought that was in this. I thought that was a ways back. Well, we've been on for 3 years, haven't we?
Yeah. So I'm trying to find the videos that are like in between half a year and a year ago.
Okay.
But I don't know.
By the way, while you're looking for that, I want to just really quickly shout out. I've been having some conversations with people about what happened in Calgary. We're not going to cover it on today's show, but I figured it'd be worth covering. So for anybody who doesn't know,
Danny froze again. This happens. Danny's internet connection is terrible. So I apologize. There we go. It reset. And now Danny's going to be deafening. Change your mic source. Change your video source.
Hold on.
Now, today is like the first time in a while that Danny's had issues with his sound and stuff like that. So I will take the small win on my end. Okay,
let's see here.
Okay. So I'm going to use this time. I'm going to use this time to log into Twitch.
Oh, that's weird.
Okay, there we go. Oh no, they're going to send me a second.
See, Steven's got to learn the magical art of how to how to talk while you're doing things.
251.
So you don't have dead air. Dead air is like a.
Yes, I'm sorry.
It's basically death to people are like, hey, I want to stay here and listen to dead silence. Let's do that. Yeah, that sounds exciting.
Well, that is what everybody wants to listen to. Dead
of course, just dead air, so dead silence, dead air, so relaxing. That's what people look forward to. Way to go.
Everybody looks forward to what are they doing? I have no idea what they're doing. Yeah. Conquerworm's here. What is Conquerworm saying?
Conquerworm's the best.
Steve must be. I am happy. Yes. Here, I'll send you a little video to prove it. I sent this to my buddy earlier today to showcase how happy I was. And so what happened was my 2-year-old got very excited when I started screaming when they went up 3-0. And so I was like, do you want to make a video to send to Daddy's friend? And she's like, yeah. And so this is what I sent. And I'm going to... hang on, I need to share I need to switch over to the stories. Okay, here we go. So this is me and my 2-year-old celebrating the Leafs going up 3-0. That was us celebrating going up 3-0. And then My buddy sends me this message. Your video died on True Conflict. Yep. Okay, you
I
got
figured
it.
out what happened. I figured out what happened. Okay, so for anybody who doesn't, nobody knows, but me and Steven had to come up with a weird workaround because Discord basically changed their settings, and now anytime Steven does anything other than just like the us chatting, you can't see my video. So we found a workaround using a weirdly named chat option or video chat option called TrueConf, which sounds very much like Minecraft, which I was like, that's a naming error there, boys.
Naming error, but that does work.
But the problem is that I'm basically running video on 2 different places, and so I realized I'm like, oh, okay, I have to turn off the video on Minecraft. Sorry, on TrueConf before I can turn on the video on Discord. Anyways, I'm set, and I know what to do now if it happens again.
Yeah,
all ready to go, man.
Yep, I was just there was a spike in usages, and I was like, oh, just checking on my computer stats to make sure everything's good, and everything is pristine.
Dude, you have the Hulk version of a computer.
I do.
You're like, Hulk mad.
Hulk mad.
So much power in your thing.
Oh, I was looking at it and I'm like, is it okay? I'm like, oh, it's just at like 50% usage. It's fine. It's fine. Just 50.
You basically have the Tim the Toolman Taylor computer. Like more power. Like it's insane how much power his computer has. I was like, wow.
Well, and that's the funny part is like when you talk about computers, it's just like my friend was showing me this and he's like, look at this, how much this processor, like this motherboard costs. And I'm like, oh yeah, that motherboard costs like $1,000. And I'm like, what is this motherboard for? And it's like, oh, it's this like special type of processor that's just like stupid, ridiculously powerful from like 7 years ago. And it still like kicks my processor's butt. And I'm like, yes, but I'm not willing to spend $5,000 on a processor.
I think
because that's nonsense. Anyways, let's jump in. Let's do the prayer of shrewdness, and let's go right into our stories.
Get in there, man.
All right.
Speak it like MLK. Like MLK.
I'm not going to do that.
It's my favorite way.
I know. It's your favorite way of just not doing it.
I'll do it next week.
Sure. A prayer of shrewdness. Our most merciful and just Father in heaven, we pray over the words we are about to speak. May we be your mouthpieces this day. Use us to speak the truth fearlessly. Guide us that we may speak wisely. But as we have been shown mercy, let us also offer love and peace, even to those who curse and abhor us, that we may be instruments of your love in our growing ever darker world. Amen.
Testify. Do I hear an amen?
Well, you'll have to hear an amen because it has to counter this. So this is a video from Freedom Tunes. Now, and it's
just got to do a quick preface. This video is satire, yet it's so accurate.
It's so poignant
that it's like it's a satire, or is it actually just describing the actual facts? You be the judge. Let us know.
Conquer Worm, should we expect him to start on fire? No, it's surprisingly well cooled. It has like 7 fans inside.
Yes, he does.
All right, let's talk about what liberals mean by book banning.
Psst. Psst. Yeah? Hey, kid. Check this out.
Hey, what are you doing? Help! 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 What is going on here? This pervert is trying to...
This woman is trying to ban books!
What?
She wants to ban my queer literature!
Oh, so we've got a book banner!
That's just shameful!
You're sick, lady! For telling him he can't show porn to my kid? Have you heard of a little thing called the First Amendment? Yeah, so much for free speech! How are you siding with this pervert?
Pervert?
Whoa! Whoa!
You can't call people that! You should be in jail!
Just when I thought that people like me could be accepted.
Oh, there.
Look! You've destroyed his innocence!
His purity! Where do we draw the line anymore? Is nothing sacred?
You've taken something from me
Poor guy.
I'll never get back.
What? His purity? This is what he was trying to show my child!
Hey, you can't show people that.
I didn't need to see
What's
that
wrong with
today.
you?
That's enough, ma'am. You're under arrest.
Where were you?
The damage has already been done.
How can there ever be justice for something like this?
Don't worry, she'll get hers.
Yeah. You know what they do to people like that in prison?
I mean, how?
Oh, it's
you would think that
it's
that would
so
be
on
like
point
just too
today.
ridiculous, but like we actually have that happening in school board meetings where parents will be like, "This is pornography," and the school board's like, "You can't show that. There's kids here." It's like, then why are you showing it in schools? It's like, whoa, get out. It's like that's basically what they do. And you think
This
I'm
is a public
exaggerating, but
forum.
I'm not. I've seen the actual videos of school boards actually doing that kind of crap. It is insane.
Yeah.
So like, shout out to Seamus Coughlin, who is brilliant. He is brilliant at exposing things like that through satire. I think he's almost equivalent to like, Babylon Bee, like in the stuff that he does. It's great.
Oh yeah, just truly great, truly great. But speaking of Babylon Bee, let's talk about this week in satire.
Uh-oh, here we go.
Transition me. Okay, no. All right, got to do some vocal warm-ups.
Emma loves to be a girl.
I can do the Elmo voice.
Ah, I bet you can, and I bet you can chop my.
Oh boy!
All right, Emma, go for it.
All right, I'll do it when the Elmo voice comes up. Hasbro introduces new Transition Me Elmo doll. So the creative minds behind the long-running children's television show Sesame Street.
Hold
Yes.
on. I have an idea. Do it like like a toy commercial, like the creative minds behind the long-running, like you know,
Okay,
how
all
a
right.
talking commercial. You know what I'm talking about. Okay, go for it.
All right. The creative minds behind the long-running children's television show Sesame Street have partnered with Hasbro to come up with what they believe is this year's hot new toy, the Transition Me Elmo doll.
Much better.
This is the perfect toy to give children of any age, said Samantha. Well, but it's Samantha.
You're not doing Elmo.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Said Samantha Melton, Chief Marketing and Brand Officer at Sesame Workshop. No matter the stage of your child's development, there's no wrong time to introduce them to the exciting new world of gender reassignment. Transition Me Elmo will have your youngster questioning their identity in no time. The new doll is set to coincide with Sesame Street's new push for inclusive subject matter, featuring the show's iconic characters embracing new ideas and worldviews to better train young minds to reject the most foundational concepts of science, family dynamics, and morality. If beloved characters like Elmo, Oscar the Grouch, Big Bird, and Bert and Ernie aren't trusted to teach your children who they are and what gender and sexual roles define them as human beings, then who will? Melton continued.
Your children.
The doll will
We
not only
forgot
offer
the
young,
effort.
impressionable children the opportunity to transition Elmo to any number of genders, but also play pre-recorded progressive lessons when various
here
body
we go.
parts are squeezed, such as... Okay,
You can
Just
do
trying
it.
to get
You
it.
can do it.
just trying to get into the voice.
Gotta get the cadence. Gotta get the cadence.
have boy parts, but I feel like I'm a girl.
No, that's too low. You gotta do like.
Yeah.
I have
Okay.
parts, but I feel like I'm a girl.
Okay, I'm just trying to get my catchphrase. My eyes, they're like ping pong balls. You were born in the wrong body. Puberty blockers have no side effects. Dance before detransition. Oh my gosh. At publishing time, the creators of the doll were hoping to secure a guest appearance by TikTok personality Dylan Mulvaney to promote the doll on the show, since Mulvaney had become such a proven advertising commodity.
Okay, you know what's really funny about that? There was recently emerged a video where Dylan Mulvaney was trolled by Alex Stein, who asked Dylan to basically do a cameo, and he pretended to be like a trans swimmer, and so Dylan actually did like the cameo,
Yes.
and then he's like, I didn't even know who this guy was. Like, I got fooled, and he was actually pissed. Normally, Dylan always has this facade that he refuses to like talking anything but like, like friendly, like happy, condescending voice, kind of like, I'm so great and I wish you the best and I hate your guts. But in this one, man, he lost his
cool. He lost his crap
big time. He was like, dang, I'm pissed. It's like, oh, there's actually something dark underneath all that makeup.
There is something dark.
Wouldn't imagine. By the way, I recommend anybody who go and watch the video at the very bottom of this article. Babylon Bee absolutely nailed it with the video. Like it's at the bottom of the article. I'm not sure you can show us, Steven. Underneath the stuff here. Scroll down. Okay. Scroll down. Scroll down for ammo.
I was just trying to access Parler, and Parler is now.
Parler started thing.
Parler is undergoing a strategic reassessment and is no longer operational.
That is unfortunate.
Yeah, for 19,000 viewers, basically disappeared over flipping night.
Yeah, still a little bitter about that.
Still bitter. This is so great.
Yeah, you can play it.
Let's watch it. It's just so good.
20 seconds. It's great.
Sir?
Guys, like looking at him.
Greetings, fellow adult human. I would like to acquire one tattoo, please.
A tattoo?
Yep. Just a good old-fashioned tattoo, like we adults are legally allowed to acquire, according to Google, at age 21, which, of course, I am.
How old are you, kid?
Okay. I'm 15. 14.
I haven't actually seen the whole thing.
I'd like a tattoo of this really awesome Chinese symbol that I saw. That means no one can tell me what to do.
No can do on a tattoo without your parents' permission. Tattoos are permanent, you see?
Yeah, I know, but I've thought about it a lot, and there's no way I'll change my mind. I want it here, right on my neck, so everyone can see it. Actually, never mind. I want a butterfly on my lower back. Or maybe Ariana Grande eating a donut. Yeah, definitely that one.
I know you think you know what you want, but getting a tattoo is a big deal, all right? I didn't get my first tattoo until I was 21, and it wasn't the best decision.
Ooh, of Bill Cosby.
So we're definitely going to need your parents to come sign off on that.
Ugh, but my parents will say no. They're so strict. They never let me do anything. It's my body, my choice.
You're 14. Take it from me. You're going to regret it one day.
All right.
Ooh,
then
yay.
Can I just buy some of those cigarettes?
No way. Smoking is so bad for you. You got to take care of your lungs. They're the only set you're going to get.
How about a beer?
No.
A vape pen?
No.
A lighter?
Not in this state.
Can I rent a car?
Sorry.
Can I get a library card?
Nah.
Bottle of cough syrup?
What are you, a drunk?
Fireworks?
You might blow yourself up.
That Ruger GP100 and a box of 38 specials?
You might shoot your eye out.
This used, like new copy of acclaimed perennial classic, Turok 2, Seeds of Evil?
No! Video games cause violence. And that might cause you to go out and shoot up some dinosaurs.
Alright, then can I just, I don't know, like get an irreversible gender surgery?
No problem. We'll get started right away.
Oh, cool. I don't need my parents' permission.
Of course not. What if they're non-affirming?
This is all moving a little too fast. Is there something else I can get?
Well, we've got a 2-for-1 special on abortions today. I understand it's kind of a big step. Some people like to take a few minutes to think it through. So, what do you say we just easy on into it and get you started on some of these puberty blockers?
I don't know. Are there any side effects?
We have no idea.
But they'll give them to me without my mom signing off?
Of course. What do you say? Take the pills.
I need to go home and think about it some...
Take the pills.
I don't know.
Take the pills, Amy.
I didn't even tell you my name.
Tattoo at her age? What's this world coming to? Ridiculous.
It's good.
Okay, the longer version was even better.
It is better.
I only saw like a shorter version of like
I'm
the
so
clips.
sorry.
I think that's what happened.
So
what
sorry.
happened? What'd you do?
I didn't realize. I'm so sorry, everybody.
What'd you do?
I had it on the commentary. I didn't have it on the stories. I apologize.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, sorry. I had it where like our screens or our videos are bigger.
Okay.
Yeah. So my bad.
Also, they can only hear it. They can see it.
Yep.
Way to go, man.
I know that was my
you.
bad.
That is on you.
And then Conquerworm tried to correct me, and I did not see it because I have to have the screen full screen when I do that.
If only we had the admonish button, we would admonish you so hard right now, bro.
I know.
So
all right, let's just jump into the rant of the week so we can all forget my problems.
Go watch the video. It is amazing. It is one of their better ones.
It is very good.
It's very well done.
Okay, so let's do the rants of the week, and then we can forget about my errors.
Yep.
Oh. Okay. Somehow the source file has disappeared.
Okay. So I guess we're just doing the rant of the week.
Just doing the rant of the week. No
stinger today.
No stinger today.
Okay, I'm gonna create an actual admonish button for you, just for you, Steven. I'm gonna do a whole stinger just for Steven.
All right.
We're gonna basically use it several times per episode. I'm thinking. Anyways, go ahead.
Conquerworm forgives me. Twitter permanently suspends journalist reporting on Matt Walsh account leak. Twitter permanently suspended the account of the Wired reporter after he posted a link to his story of the hacking of conservative commentator Matt Walsh, an account that included private emails provided by the hacker. Wired reporter Del Cameron posted a link to his story and was promptly suspended, likely because of the use of material stolen from Mr. Walsh's phone. Wired managing editor Hamal Javeri demanded an explanation in a statement Wednesday. Neither the Del story nor his Twitter feed continued hacked materials. We do not believe his account violated Twitter's policy. We've not received further explanation from Twitter, and our attempts to reach Twitter's press office were met with the customary poop emoji. Sometimes I think that's how I will now respond to stupid Twitter threads. It's just the customary poop emoji.
That was pretty epic. I will say.
Conservative journalist Andy No was the first to call out Mr. Cameron, saying he had been soliciting hacked information and acting as a partisan, not a journalist. Mr. Walsh himself responded to Wired's statement on Mr. Cameron's banning, echoing Mr. No's accusation the reporter broke Twitter's rules. Your reporter directly solicited stolen material from my phone. A Twitter suspension is going to be the least of his problems and yours. So, let's just go over what exactly happened. So, Daily Wire co-founder reveals hackers got 20 years of Matt Walsh's emails.
That was a big deal.
So,
when we found
Walsh,
yesterday,
and oh my gosh, I had to, like, it's absolutely ridiculous how many people on Twitter are just like, well, he's a fascist. And it's like, okay, like, do you have any resources or evidence? Because he calls himself a theocratic fascist. It's like, as a joke, because it's calling out how ridiculous it is for you guys to call him a theocratic fascist.
No, what they got was they listened or read a what are they called? Media Matters article, because that's where people get their information. Media Matters has a bad reputation for clipping statements out of context and using them as like, you see, they said this thing and all that. And it's so bad that even today on Timcast IRL, they had, or that was last night, they have Michael Knowles on, and he said something jokingly. He's like, oh, what? There you go. Like, like Media Matters going to clip that and like write about it. And I'm like, yeah, it's a joke now because Media Matters is so dishonest, but people on the left treat it as they're like the ultimate, like, the top notch of like journalistic integrity. It's like, no, not at all. So anyway, that's probably where to get that. Oh, you're doing something else. Okay.
I am.
So yeah, and sometimes it's hard to tell what Steven's doing because he's just like all over the place. Anyways, so big. Okay, so one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about this as part of the rant is because what's going on right now is we are seeing a very clear divide in the actions and the tactics of the two sides. And one thing that really stood out to me this week, and it's become really obvious, and the Daily Wire basically the hosts are really showing this, is that it's becoming almost impossible to be able to make the argument that, this is both the both sides bias, right? It's like when people say oh, well, there's like when you say the left-wing media has like a ton of bias, people will be like, well, there's bias on both sides. Or when you say well, like the left-wing activists are really violent and really and really like vindictive and all that kind of stuff. They're like, well, that's on both sides. That's what people will always say, right? That's the talking point. But I think what's going on is we're starting to see the left, and particularly like the really extreme lunatic leftists, the activists, they're starting to become very aggressive and almost to the point where they're not even holding back and trying to be like strategic in their opposition. Now they're downright getting into full-on violence and full-on like attacks, and they're being very overt about it. Okay, so when people say like, oh, this stuff happens on both sides, it really doesn't. No. Because what you see here, you see what's a very common tactic that people who are in the know, who follow the stuff, who follow politics very often, they see this everywhere. You see, okay, somebody stands up against the woke mob, and then suddenly they are attacked mercilessly. Okay, we have so many examples of that in the past. Like there's that one woman, you and I, Stephen, did it. She looked like a Muslim lady, and she was
going after Jeffrey Marsh.
Jeffrey Marsh, and she did this really funny pushback video. But then I found out later she actually put a video out apologizing.
Oh yeah.
And because she had gotten legitimate death threats from like people. Like,
it was more than just death threats for her, though.
Yeah, it was dangerous. Like
it was like people. People smashed her car. They took pictures of her kids going to school.
Yep, legitimate.
And they're like, "Oh yeah, we know your schedule. Like we know when you leave the house. We know when you come home." And she's like, "Well, I have to apologize," or at least, well, she felt that she needed to apologize. Unfortunately, she doesn't know that the woke does not forgive and they don't forget. No, continue to come after her.
Yeah, so this is beyond. It's beyond intimidation, because one of the things we always see, left-wing personalities, whenever they get caught in some I said something stupid, then they'll turn around and be like, well, I'm getting all sorts of hate mail and really mean tweets and whatever else. Funny how they never ever show these tweets. They never actually expose them, or if they do, they're always like ridiculously stupid or made up by bot accounts, most likely. On the right side, I have seen stories of like there was a woman in England who was literally she was getting actual like people showing up at her door trying to kill her, and the left never ever condemns this, never. Okay, but the people on the left, they're downright like unhinged. They're very, very sick and like sometimes like you actually wonder, these are like unstable, like mentally unstable people, because they will do anything. Right, they will actually put people in harm's way. The best example we can come up with, obviously, is what happened to Brett Kavanaugh when during the whole Roe v. Wade thing. Somebody actually showed up at his house, at a Supreme Court justice's house, with the intent of murdering him and possibly like hurting his family. And the only reason why he wasn't successful, sounds like, is because he had a change of heart and decided to turn himself in.
Yeah,
but this is what you're dealing with right now. You're dealing with people who are willing to do anything. Anything goes. There are no limits. There are no boundaries. And that is not something you see from the right. The right does not engage in this level of and I will say it, it's not even intimidation tactics. It's downright domestic terrorism.
Yep.
Because if you go historically, look at what they did during the Ku Klux Klan. The Ku Klux Klan were domestic terrorists. That's why they hid their faces. That's why they wanted to keep their identities secret, because they were doing things that were actually criminal, and they were very much dangerous and meant to like scare people into silence. That's why they work. And of course, they were working in conjunction with the Democratic Party and in conjunction with the media, who were always all too happy to hide their things, because they were all after the same thing. Right now, Antifa, BLM, and a lot of the people from these from the trans, like right now, the trans activists, they're not activists. They're now moving very heavily into the realm of domestic terrorism, not activism, and definitely not protest.
Well, and here's a fully reasonable example from this. So just from last night. Oh no, was it last night? No, it was Tuesday night. Mm-hmm. So you had an event hosted by Michael Knowles. And there was an explosion reported amid protesters over University of Pittsburgh transgenderism debate. Now, of course, thankfully, no one was injured by the small explosion, but the intent of it was to scare people, and it was to try and evacuate the building because there was a large petition to try and cancel this event. The University of Pittsburgh issued a public safety emergency after a loud pop was heard, just as an anti-trans event was kicking off on campus. So Michael Knowles and libertarian writer Vlad Palomo visited the campus for a discussion titled "Should Transgenderism Be Regulated by Law?" Chat began around 7 p.m. Just as the discussion was beginning, a loud bang was heard near the student center, which prompted the university to issue its emergency advisory. Like this event.
But before you go on, I want to point something out because Michael pointed this out on the Timcast IRL, and I want to make sure people are aware of this. Look at what the Independent is a left wing source. Okay, how they describe it, they say compared to the sound of fireworks on the street.
Yep.
Okay, and they call it a small explosion that not cause any injuries. What's going on is the media, and a lot of left wing media, you can almost predict it. It's like clockwork. They're going to try to downplay it. They're going to treat it like, oh, it's just a firework. And what Michael Knowles was saying, like, no, they know what it was. It was what's it called? An M80? It's a firecracker.
Yeah.
But it's a firecracker that if it blows up close enough to you, in your face, close by your hand or by your foot or whatever, it can cause some very serious damage.
Okay.
Because these are, whether or not it's a firecracker, it is an explosive and it can hurt you.
Yeah.
So people try to downplay and be like, "Oh, you're freaking out over fireworks." It's like, no. Like these people are not like they're not in
which
any
is
way
actually
like
moderately concerning.
Right, and the fact that they're also like they also burned a likeness of Michael Knowles.
An effigy,
an effigy. They burned an effigy, which is, to be fair, that's considered intimidation. It should be considered intimidation because you're basically saying this is how much we hate you that we're willing. We almost want to see you burn.
Yeah,
that could be considered to be like a very legitimate, like almost like a threat, right? So keep that in mind when you think about the left and the right. They both engage in the same tactics. And no, they don't.
No.
At this point, if you want to argue that, you are literally arguing out of absurdity and not out of legitimate
concern.
Points. You basically have to ignore the news and have to completely downplay and pretend like it didn't happen. That's the way that it works.
And even because I had some free time last night, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna keep track. There's some Twitter threads because before the events from Matt Walsh yesterday, there was some police and some sheriff and some canine units that were searching the building because there were a couple bomb threats, and they wanted to confirm that there were no explosives. And I was like, okay, well, yeah, it's good that they're there. Like, want to make sure that everybody who attends this event is safe. And they're like, no, we don't. And I'm like, what do you mean you don't want to make sure that everybody else is safe? And they're like, everybody that attends that event should suffer the consequences of going to that event. And I'm like, and what are the consequences of going to that event? And they're
basically wishing people dead.
Oh yeah. I was like, are you wishing like Matt Walsh and those? And they're like, yep. Fascists should be burned alive. And I'm like, whoa. And I'm like, don't you realize how deplorable conduct this is? And they're like, I don't care. Fascists should die. And I'm like, okay, why are you calling him fascist? Well, because he is. And I'm like, because is not an answer. And they're like, yes, it is. And I'm like, I shall answer you in kind. And I'm like, nuh-uh. Because I'm like, that's what you deserve. Like, you cannot detail why you believe these erroneous things about these individuals, and then you use these erroneous beliefs to catapult yourself into encouraging and inciting violence on others.
Yeah, because it's a cult, Stephen.
It is. I know it's a cult. It's just really upsetting that it's just they're so deviant in their deplorable desires, and that was triple D's. Deviant in their deplorable desires to wish death and destruction, 5 D's, death and destruction upon others.
Quintuple D's.
I know.
Now, okay. The left and the right operate from very different principles. On the right, we operate from the sense of the principles of reason, of a desire for truth, and logic. Like that's how we operate. The left, and particularly when I say left, we're talking about woke moralists. These people who are in the cult. Okay, they don't operate from that principle because remember, did you see that guy? He was on a PragerU video. He was on Timcast recently. He basically red pilled himself. and he talked about how Candace Owens basically he tried to debunk her, and he found out like, holy crap, I was totally wrong. And he actually became conservative as a result. Anyways, the point is, he was saying that when he was really involved with the cult, with all the cult thinking, all the cult personalities, is he was saying that he was surprised and shocked to find out that you're not allowed to deviate from the message. You're not allowed to question any of it. You have to basically completely accept all of it, or you are shunned and you're tarred and feathered by your own side. You're basically expected to just blindly and like, you know, mindlessly adhere to everything. Everything that we say is true. Everything that we is right, and no one's allowed to question it. And if anybody questions it from within their own movement, they're instantly treated like, you know, like heathens and like parasites and like everything else. The way it works, everyone has to blindly and completely adhere to it. It's a cult. It fits all of the characteristics of a cult, and these people just don't see it. That's why they can. And one of the things that they're doing, and they're ramping it up right now, is the dehumanizing language. Remember how Gina? Okay, do you remember why Gina Carano from Disney was fired? Even
she was fired because she compared the scapegoating of Jews to the scapegoating of the unmasked, the unvaccinated, and those who oppose COVID restrictions, and conservatives.
Yes. So she basically made a comment that like this is a bad trend. We don't want to get into the trend of dehumanizing people because we've seen examples historically of where it leads, and they instantly like destroyed her because she's not allowed to say. She's not allowed to bring up fascism or bring up the Nazis or whatever because she's a conservative, right? But the point is, they're now getting into the very thing that Gina Carano was warning against, which is dehumanization will lead to some really bad things. Right now, we are in the official stage of dehumanization. Remember, like, what was the lady who was on The View that basically said, like, you know, like when she thought about pro-lifers, we need to
Jane Fonda.
Jane Fonda. Think about this: a nationally syndicated talk show, and she goes on there, literally says she contemplates murdering people,
pro-lifers
that she doesn't like, and that's not even like, it's not even just like, oh, that's shameful. It's like that should actually come with a little bit of like criminal penalties because you're literally advocating for
FBI
violence.
No, seriously,
you should. Right.
Yeah. Well, like, there were people who did that. There were people who tagged the FBI, and there were people who tagged like various police departments because they should. In an incident like that, where she's like, "Yep, what do we do about pro-lifers?" She's like, "I've thought about murder," and it's like, well, that could be deemed incitement. If you're like, well, I clearly thought about killing people as a result of solving my problems. Yeah. And of course, that's ridiculous to any sane and rational person. And I'll finish this topic with this. I'll always go back to the famous phrase from Dennis Prager. The difference between how the left views the right and the right views the left is the right views the left as confused and ignorant and in need of guidance.
They're wrong.
The left, the right views the left as they're wrong. The left views the right as they're evil.
Yeah. And
that dictates everything about how the two groups and the two sides address each other. Because the right is like, okay, we want to have civil dialogue. We want to go across the aisle. We want to make sure that we're not inciting. We're not trying to threaten. We're not trying to scare people off. We're just trying to have a reasonable dialogue and discussion. Whereas the left is like, there is no measure which is far enough. There is no measure that can be taken which is enough aside from ending the lives of those who disagree with us, because we can't reason with them. We can't talk to them. All we can do is shut them up, censor them, or kill them.
Yeah. And I just want to like just tag on to that point. We're moving into a new phase, and I genuinely want to send this out as a warning to conservatives. We are moving past the phase of just protest and cancel culture and all that. We're officially moving into a new phase in our society where acts of violence and legitimately like threatening other people and like, you know, actually hurting them is now becoming normalized. And so as a conservative, we are no longer dealing with people who are just yelling at us. Like we're not bringing we're not trying to talk to somebody who's like trying to like, you know, throw stuff at us. Now we're trying to talk to somebody who's literally throwing punches. And so you have to change your approach, because like this is why like I've actually like decided like if I ever go to a pro-choice rally, I go to any kind of like like opposition rally and all that, I'm no longer going to attempt to try to talk to the other side. Why? Because I know that there's a very strong, like almost like a unilateral tactic. They will not talk to you, period. So like, what's the point of trying? You're not supposed to. But they're now going to try to hurt you because they know that they can. They'll get away with it. So now you have to actually move into a new phase where you're no longer like no longer trusting that they're not going to try anything. Now you have to expect that they may try something, and you have to be smart about how you're going to protect yourself, because you have to understand the police are not going to typically going to protect you anymore. It's now one-sided enforcement, and these are like domestic terrorist paramilitary organizations. Like Antifa is definitely that.
Oh yeah,
the police are like when people like people criticize the Christians this weekend because they call them Nazis, and I'm like, okay, if it's descriptive of their behavior and their actions, then that's not wrong. Because if they're actually acting and following the same exact tactics and methods of like the Gestapo, which is the Nazi police forces, then yes, then it's descriptive. It's meant to be like exposing what they're doing, right? But you have to remember, they're now no longer going to try to protect you. You have to be ready. And Matt Walsh is a great example. He is now having to have armed security at his house at all times, because when people do this, when people popularize the idea that you can hurt anybody, you have to be ready. What's going on, Steven?
Oh no, I just I was kind of taking a look at Matt Walsh's Twitter because you were talking about his feed.
Okay.
And the Babylon Bee posted one of their satirical sections. It says, another Matt Walsh hack suspected because he posts calm, friendly tweets. It says, hi everyone, I hope you're all feeling well. Feeling good today. Not mad about anything. I love you. Yes, that is funny.
True. That boy is intense. I like the intensity.
Oh man, I love it. That's hilarious. Anyways, right, we do have to move on to the next section.
Okay.
Nothing to see here.
Nothing to see here.
Because there is nothing. Oh wait, there's definitely something to see here. Yeah. Again, what happened to all my source files? I have no idea. I had them last week, and then this week I have nothing. They all just disappeared. Whatever.
Nothing to see here, folks.
Nothing to see here, apparently. Including videos. There's no videos to see here.
I swear, one of these weeks we're actually going to be able to get through a full show.
No, last week it happened. Last week, Tuesday, we had no technical issues.
No, but a full Thursday show.
Oh, yeah, full Thursday. From Human Events, new UN report advocates for decriminalizing sex with minors. In March, UNAIDS and the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, two agencies of the United Nations, along with the International Committee for Jurists, published a group of new legal principles that would advance decriminalization efforts globally in principle. And Principle 16 stated sexual conduct involving persons below the domestically prescribed minimum age of consent to sex may be consensual. The principles were a product of a 2018 workshop between the three organizations and developed over the next 5 years based on feedback and reviews from a range of experts and stakeholders. According to the UNAIDS website, the principal goal was to push decriminalization globally for a wide range of actions, including sexual conduct. Principle 16, titled Consensual Sexual Conduct, read, consensual sexual conduct, irrespective of the type of sexual activity, the sex, gender, or sexual orientation, gender identity, or sexual expression of the people involved or their marital status may not be criminalized in any circumstances. Consensual same-sex as well as consensual different-sex sexual relations or consensual sexual relations between trans, non-binary, and other gender-diverse people or outside of marriage, whether premarital or extramarital, may therefore never be criminalized. With respect to the enforcement of criminal law, any prescribed minimum age of consent to sex must be applied in a non-discriminatory manner. Enforcement may not be linked to the sex, gender of participants in age consent to marriage.
By the way, this is even more concerning considering that's making this declaration, because I've read a little bit about this before. Louder Crowder did a great segment today. They basically did a very deep dive into the UN, and the UN has a very severe like child abuse and basically human rights violations record, to the point where like UN peacekeepers have been documented and caught raping children, raping like young men or women or something like that, and causing all sorts of havoc all over the world. And when they get caught, the consequences, they get sent home. There's no punishment. There's no actual crime. They basically just get sent home. You're like, well, like you were bad, so off you go back to your home country and all that. And so the fact that the UN, which is a massively, like, most of the left, by the way, leftists are very heavily in favor of big government and globalist kind of agendas because they like the idea of Marxism, and Marxism has to be enforced by the force of a gun, which means they need the government to be able to do it. The UN is basically seen by a lot of the elitists, a lot of the leftist activists as like the be all end all of, like, they're like at the frontier of human development and human progress, whatever. And the UN, if the UN is making a declaration saying that, by the way, we're advocating now for the elimination of age of consent. Okay, if you have sex with a child, with a underage child, like, I think correct me if I'm wrong, Stephen, I think in Alberta is 16. Yeah, is the age of like consent, and then I think in Europe it's like 14 or something like that. Mm-hmm. They did not put a number on what the minimum age is, which is not an accident. Anytime you see any legal, any political body making legislation of any kind and being very vague about the language, that's not an accident. That's on purpose, because they know they need to make vagueness in order to enact it in a certain way.
Move the goal in a certain direction. Yep.
The goal is they're coming after your children, and it's not even like, conspiracy theory is basically just ignore that concept. A conspiracy theory is a made up term, made and totally manufactured by the powers that be, and it's the term that it's essentially is a euphemism for crazy. If they say you're a conspiracy theory, that's a euphemism for you're crazy. But it's not crazy. This is like right there, right out in the open. They're basically saying, you know what? We're basically saying, sex with underage children, it's acceptable. And that's a position that most people you talk to in your regular day would be like, no. If you have a 35-year-old man and he has sex with a 12-year-old, that's rape. Yeah. Whether or not the child said, yeah, I'm cool with that. No, it's rape. It is rape, pure and simple, because the child does not have the ability to consent. And we understand that because psychologically the child is not capable of making those kind of decisions. Mm-hmm. But they're trying to push this everywhere. Remember, the whole drag queen story hour thing is a backdoor way of trying to argue that children can consent. And all of these things that they're doing, they're basically pushing and trying to say children can consent. Even during vaccinations, vaccine, COVID, the hysteria, they basically try to allow children to consent to vaccines. All of this consent talk it's all connected because their goal. The ultimate goal is they're trying to force the idea that children have the ability to consent to whatever they want, and that the ultimate end goal is bad. Mm-hmm. Now, can you go to the second story, the one about the Babylon Bee? Yeah, go for that one.
Okay.
This will kind of show you that
showcases it.
Yeah.
So WTF happened in Sesame Street. Remember when you can let kids watch Sesame Street without seeing Elmo in drag? So this episode is from 2020, and this guy is watching it, but it's still fairly shocking. So, yeah. He does have some interesting commentary, and it is quite loud, so just be aware of that. Maybe turn down your volume a little bit, but the content is fairly jarring.
Sesame Street, look at this, dude. Look at what they're doing. They're forcing all this stuff on our kids, man. Look at that abomination right there. With the horns and everything, dude. What is happening? Lipstick. Look at this, dude.
Elmo and drag.
Yep. Elmo and Cookie Monster and drag.
What was that from?
2020.
Was that actually Sesame Street, or was that from
It was from Sesame Street from 2020.
Was that Jimmy Kimmel show or something
incredible.
like
Yeah.
Pushing it on our kids, man. Totally.
Yep. That's Elmo and Drag right there.
Elmo and Drag in 2020.
Yeah. So tell me something. Steven, are you? Conqueror said they're not seeing. Got to switch again.
I did. I'll show you the picture.
Okay.
The picture is. There you go. That highlights everything.
Yeah. So the idea is like Elmo. Here's Elmo, and he's got a beard, and he's basically like the idea of this show, the little performance that they're putting on. Maybe put it on the background. Can you take off the sound while you play it on the background while we're talking about it?
I can turn off the sound.
Okay. So basically what they're doing is they are using what are basically puppets, and puppets that are like, nobody doubts that the puppets were designed exclusively to appeal to children. That's what they are. That's been established for ages. For like my nieces and my nephew, they grew up watching Sesame Street, and we understood Sesame Street is designed for kids. It's appealing to kids. Same with like Paw Patrol. Same with like so many different shows. Thomas the Tank, like the Engine, whatever. All those shows are made for kids, but they're trying to put it in children's programming, and they've done it in like Muppet Babies. They did it like a Disney like for kids kind of like thing with Muppet Babies, and they put Gonzo in a drag dress, try to argue that it's perfectly fine and all that. Why are they introducing these concepts to children? Okay, because let's go simple. If you are a child between, let's just go with the basics, between 3 years old and like I'd say 11 years old would be a safe bet. 3 and 11, okay? You have not entered puberty yet. Okay? So that means a child is not in any way able to be sexual. Okay? Children should not be sexualized because they're not sexual beings at that age. Okay? At the very earliest, most boys don't enter puberty until at least maybe like 11 or 12, and most girls don't even like fully enter puberty. They may start developing breasts when they're like at like 11, but they don't even, on average, they don't even enter their first period until at least 2 years after that. So at least 12 or 13 before a girl actually fully enters puberty. Okay, but this stuff is appealing to children, to very young children, and you're trying to put drag, like we've talked about before. Drag is by design, because the founders, the creators of Drag Queen Story Hour, the people who designed it, the people who came up with the concept, they called it drag pedagogy. And anybody who's gone to school of education knows pedagogy is basically a fancy word for like an educational approach for children. Okay, the only way you can actually understand it properly, if you're a reasonable and thoughtful person, is that this is intended to teach children something. And sexualized drag shows, which are basically burlesque, it's basically like a LGBT burlesque. Okay. Now, strip shows, I don't like strip shows. I don't like adult strip shows, but I understand the strip shows for adults is a totally different thing than strip show for
children.
Same thing, a burlesque show, which is basically sexualized and hyper, like very kinky kind of like like a performance. For adults, I don't like it. I wouldn't support it generally, but for adults, it's a totally different thing than trying to make a burlesque show for kids. Imagine trying to argue that, we're going to get a bunch of strippers and we're going to get them to dance on a pole for children because we want to like reduce the stigma, like that children can be tolerant of strippers. Now take that argument and apply it to drag queens, and you're basically got the same thing. They're not okay with the strippers, talking to children, trying to make it like okay, or maybe like a drug dealer or a pimp coming to talk to children, be like, oh yeah, I'm a pimp, I take care of women and all that kind of stuff, and like we're not okay with that. But suddenly our society's okay with burlesque performers talking to children. It's about sexualizing children. All right, next story.
Okay. So last one we're going to talk about in this second last one we're going to talk about in this segment. Ontario School Board cites human rights when allowing explicit book Gender Queer to remain on library shelves against parents' wishes. There were chaotic scenes at Durham District School Board meeting Wednesday. So this was a couple days ago. No, this was from today. So this was from yesterday. When the board defended its decision to keep a pornographic book on library shelves despite numerous complaints from angry parents. The book in question was Maya Kobabe's memoir, Gender Queer, which tells the story of the author's adolescent struggles with gender identity after navigating the first sexual experiences. It contains graphic descriptions and illustrations of sexual acts. And Jim McMurdy, the teacher fired for questioning the narrative on residential school history in Canada, tweeted the book can be found on shelves of elementary schools in the board. The book is deemed appropriate for age 12 to 18, but Postmillennial has not been able to confirm the book can be found on DDSB elementary school shelves. The parents of the school board meeting last night in Whitby objected to images like this in elementary school books. The board defended the images because they are part of the Ontario human rights policy designed by the woke groomers who lead our institutions.
Yeah, by the way, they used the same excuse here in Calgary with the
horrifying.
The pool incident. Okay, so like the pool incident here in Calgary, there was a transgender individual who went into a public pool with not even during regular swimming hours. He went at a very specific time when there were like swimming lessons for prepubescent girls. Okay, 10 years old to 12 years old. The prepubescent girls went to the change room thinking like this is a change room, and they see a man walking around completely naked, letting his his wang hang freely, and of course they're panicked because. For good reason, because this is supposed to be a safe space for children.
Yep.
But no, it's perfectly acceptable for that. And when I called somebody from the city to complain and asked them about it, they said they used the same line. They're like, "Oh, it's okay because the Alberta human rights legislation says it's okay."
Yeah.
That's their go-to. And by the way, the police downtown who tried to arrest people for protesting, they said the exact same thing. Oh, well, the human rights laws are in our favor, so hey, we're okay because the law is on our side, and the law is the ultimate arbiter of good. By the way, everything that the Nazis did, and speaking of the Nazis, everything that the Nazis did in the Holocaust was legal. Yep. I don't know if people know that. That was legal, which is why they had to come up with the Nuremberg trials, because they're like, no, we're not getting away with Germany made it legal to basically burn people alive and to exterminate them. You're not getting away with that. This is the place where we're at. So we have one story, the UN trying to basically say, hey, it's okay to have sex with with underage kids. We're not going to put an age limit on it. So
because that would be discriminatory.
Theoretically, you could have sex with a 3-year-old, totally okay, as long as the 3-year-old's into it. No problem. And then Sesame Street is like pushing drag queen, ideas into children's minds, like very young children. Why would they do that? Because drag pedagogy is about sexualizing children and into the queer community. And then finally the school boards, because every school board has been captured, and they're basically trying to sexualize kids, and not just sexualize them into the queer community. In other words, they want to turn them into either gay, lesbian, or trans, allies. Whether if they're participating or whether they're completely and totally taking part of it, because they're sexualizing kids. They're coming after the kids. And there's one last place where
they're coming, and that is one of the biggest places lately, which is TikTok. So TikTok's algorithm keeps pushing suicide to vulnerable kids. The super popular app can start up a stream of anxiety and despair to teens. TikTok says it's making improvements, but now faces a flood of lawsuits after multiple deaths. So TikTok's algorithm doesn't know that Chase Nazca is dead. More than a year after Nazca killed himself at age 16, his account remains active. Scroll through his For You feed and you see an endless stream of clips about unrequited love, hopelessness, pain, and what many posts glorify as the ultimate escape, suicide. Take the pain away. Death is a gift, says one video pushed to the account as February, days before the first anniversary of Nazca's death. Another, a male voice says, I'm going to put a shotgun in my mouth and blow the brains out the back of my head. And the female voice responds, cool. The feed looked much the same in the days before Nazca died. On February 13, 2022, it surfaced a video of an oncoming train with the caption, went for a quick little walk to clear my head. 5 days later, Nazca stopped at the Long Island Railroad tracks that run through the hamlet. About half a mile from his house, he leaned his bike against a fence and stepped onto the track at a blind curve his parents had warned him about since he was old enough to walk. He sent a message, I'm sorry, I can't take it anymore. The train rounded the bend and he was gone. Like, this is what they're promoting on children. And like Tim Pool says this a lot, and we've said this a lot. This is what happens when you have generations of liberals that do not want any form of responsibility in the form of raising their own children, but they want to take yours. And so they will try and take yours by government force. If you refuse to abide by their mandates, they'll try and take your children by brainwashing them into their own cults. Or if they cannot do that, or even if they can do that, then they will ultimately try and push this nonsense where maybe it's like little ideas. Maybe it's better off for you to not be here. Maybe it's better off for you to die. This is what they're pushing on people. They're leaving them depressed. They're leaving them alone, isolated. So the only people that they'll reach out to is not those who care about them. It's not family. It's not friends. It's the government and it's the cults. And they will take the desperate, the lonely, and the needy, and they will transform them into radicals and extremists, or they will let them die.
Yeah, and like I've said this before, and I believe that this is very true. The left is a cult, but it's not just a cult; it's a death cult.
Yep.
Okay, because they're nihilists, and they glorify death. And by the way, this is not meant to be an insult. This is meant to be description, because if you actually watch and look what they advocate for abortion, which means they want less children. Okay, and their solution to every single problem with all the sexual proliferation of everyone is that you can solve all your problems by just killing your children. Yeah. That's your solution. Then you have the Canadian government who basically says like, oh, we want to encourage suicide prevention, but also we're going to push MAID on everyone and say like, oh, are you a little depressed? We're gonna offer you to kill you.
Yeah.
Right.
No, Patriot Concierge is right. Another arm of population control, 100%. Yeah. And like we said this actually in the next, it actually lines up quite well with the next argument or the next article in terms of population control. TikTok to censor content that challenges global warming dogma. Like we mentioned on Tuesday that there were articles that were pushing against the use of rice because rice releases methane, and methane, of course, contributes to global warming.
Yeah,
like this is the mentality. This is the ideal of it's too expensive. It's too damaging to the planet to keep so many people alive. Let's just remove food sources. Let's make it impossible for you to heat your home. Let's just kill off the young. It's all moving towards an agenda.
Did you hear about that poll that came out recently? I still have to look it up, but they talk about it on Timcast all the time. It's the poll that basically they ask people like, do you think that do you think that like humans are bad for the world or something like? Do you think the world would be better off with less humans? And it was like 40% of people said yes. And there was just like, are you freaking kidding me? Like, there's that many people who basically said like, yeah, like they prefer. They think that the world would be better off with less people or if people were not around. Mm-hmm. It's basically a death cult.
Yep.
Like these people want they through whatever means possible they want to kill off human population.
Yep.
And by the way, another way you know it's a cult is they want to dictate what you're allowed to see and what you're not allowed to see. I studied several cults, Christian cults, by the way, but that's because they were related to what we were studying. Jehovah's Witnesses, Mormons, Seventh-day Adventists, even Scientologists. All of those cults have one, like there's many similarities, but one of the big similarities, they basically tell all their members, do not do your own research. You do not look into this yourself. Don't even. And that's bad. That's considered sinful in those cults because they don't want their people to be informed. They want them to be completely and totally beholden to their beliefs and their ideologies. It's like what was that called on The Simpsons? Like they had like a whole episode on it and all that. But it's the same idea. They isolate them. They keep them like away from information. When you censor content on global warming, what's the purpose? It's because they don't want people to find out that it's a scam and that it's completely and totally like they're taking information that's partially true and they're creating a gigantic panic of all proportions so that they can justify things that people normally would not accept. Right now in Canada, Stephen Guilbeault, who's like one of the guys in Trudeau's cabinet, he's basically like, oh, people are suffering and people are having a tough time feeding their children and are like homeless and all that.
Okay.
Don't worry, we're gonna pump up that carbon tax by 5 times. Why? Because the earth is more important than people's lives. So don't buy it. So altogether, the focus of this segment that we want to put a through line through this is that they're coming for your kids and they're coming for basically humanity.
Yeah.
And right now they've basically like upped the stakes.
Yeah.
And they're not even trying to hide it anymore that are coming for you.
So I actually have an interesting from Conquer Worm: Christian nationalism, cult, myth, or tactic to cannibalize the church. It depends on I would say it depends on the severity of how they're practicing nationalism. Like if they're exalting patriotic fervor, if they're glorifying, celebrating the nation on an equivalent level with worshiping, then yes, that is an issue. Like I remember going to some American churches and we would sing a hymn followed by God Save America. I was like, okay, like that's maybe a little too far because it's equating patriotic. Yes, I can still see you, Danny. Equating patriotic fervor with the same level of zeal as worship towards God. So I'm not on board with that. But like being mildly patriotic, being celebrating the freedoms that you've been given, especially if you live in a more free nation than we do, it's not something I wouldn't say that would be on the same level or akin to a cult. I would say that there is a potential for individuals to get sucked into a cult-like mentality with an ideal of nationalism, but the entire idea of Christian nationalism as a whole, I would say is not a cult. It just depends on how far they go with it.
Yeah. I would say with the Christian nationalism, it's a distraction. It's not constructive. It's not going to lead to good things right now, and it's like wasting resources right now. Christians and particularly like some traditional conservatives, we have a lot of battles to fight, and we're not exactly in a position of power. Like most of the left owns most of the institutions of power. The only thing that talking about Christian nationalism does is it gives them more of the talking points that they want. They're trying to accuse us of wanting the theocracy. They're trying to accuse us of creating the what do you call it? The Handmaid's Tale. This is the talking points that they're trying to throw at us, right? And so talking about Christian nationalism, it only gives them more tools to basically use against us and to basically gain more power. Yep. So it's not a worthwhile discussion. And really right now we need to focus on other things important. And I think I get the sentiment. People have like their hearts in the right place mostly. Yeah. But it's just not going to be constructive. And also, by the way,
Reddit
Patriot Concierge. We didn't talk about the Dalai Lama.
Well, we didn't talk about it today, but we did talk about the Dalai Lama last week.
Previously, yes. We basically both think that there's no justification for what he did. No matter how much you try to couch it in like cultural differences. Yeah. I'm like, no, it's just
sucking on a little boy's tongue. Ugh.
No, it's like saying well, there's a culture out there that really thinks cannibalism is totally cool. You're like, okay, I don't care. Cannibalism is wrong, no matter who.
Doesn't matter.
No matter if it's cultural cannibalism, no. If it's cultural, acceptance of adult and male, inappropriate relationships than an adult male and a child. I don't care which culture does it. It's still wrong. So
it's wrong.
That was my take.
We do have to move on and do other things. So let's go on to the news you may have missed to talk about the news that you may have missed.
Got it.
And let's get some music going. So, unfortunately, National Review won't let me read this headline very easily. So, it's essentially that the Virginia government is coming after the Tiki Torch marchers, and this is an example of prosecutorial abuse. So, of course, we're in alignment with this article. The Charlottesville racists should be denounced, but prosecuting them for a peaceful protest is abusive, unfair, and probably unconstitutional.
Yeah,
so
much constitutional.
Yes, it was wrong for Chuck Schumer to laud political mobs on their own side while bringing felony charges carrying significant jail time against political mobs on the other side, even when it meant throwing the book against people who committed no acts of violence. Well, here we are a day later. We have news that criminal charges have been brought against 3 far-right protesters. I wouldn't even call them far-right. I would just call them neo-Nazis. At the infamous 2017 Charlottesville Tiki Torch rally, these men were extradited from Texas, Ohio, and South Carolina to Virginia and charged with marching with tiki torches. They allege the torch carriers violated a rarely enforced criminal statute, which makes it a crime to burn objects with intent to intimidate when they marched around the University of Virginia campus on August 11, 2017, while chanting, "You will not replace us," and the Nazi slogan, "Blood and Soil." Burning objects with intent to intimidate is punishable in Virginia by 1 to 5 years in prison.
It's funny how they burned, Michael Knowles and effigy.
Mm-hmm.
In any way the same.
Yeah, there's no crime for burning a person in effigy.
Yeah.
But, oh yes, if you have a tiki torch and you're burning it, then, oh yes, this is a crime because it's intent to intimidate. And it's like, okay, this is clearly, well, this is prosecutorial abuse, and it's exceptionally sad because we've said this a long time before, and people accuse us, oh, you're slippery slope. They start with this. They start saying, oh, it's wrong to have tiki torches. Then it'd be, oh, it's wrong to have fireworks that celebrate a certain thing. Mm-hmm. It's wrong to say words that intimidate with the intent to intimidate, to the intent to harass.
Yep.
Like it's all just a general progression towards we want to control what you think, what you say, and what you do, because we want to make sure that you cannot disagree with us.
Absolutely.
So,
by the way, somebody said in the chat, Charleston is in Canada. Well, first of all, Charlottesville.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. This is from NPR or National Review.
Yeah.
So it's an American story.
Mm-hmm. Are you referring specifically that I have my flag upside down, Master Voltaire?
Most likely.
Probably.
That used to come up every single
episode because it's just like, oh my gosh, the flag is upside down. It's like, yes, Canada is in distress. Our leader is a dingus.
Yes, you're right. That's right. All right, let's go for Hindustani Times, which is funny. Where I found the story. All right, menacing asteroid racing towards Earth for dangerous close approach today. A menacing asteroid is hurtling towards Earth, and it will make a close approach to Earth today. Know what NASA has revealed about the space rock, and this is April 18, 2023. We hear these all the time, but it's always interesting to find these stories. Apocalyptic movies like Armageddon have explored the possibility of, they basically compare it to like Armageddon. Okay, here's the details. NASA has issued a warning of a particular asteroid called Asteroid 2023 GR, as it will be approaching very close to Earth. The asteroid is currently traveling at a speed of 32,613 kilometers per hour. It is set to make its closest approach to Earth today, April 18th, at a distance of 7.1 million kilometers per hour.
Mm-hmm.
As per NASA, this thing is as big as an aircraft with a width between 147 feet and 328 feet. It belongs to the Amor group, which are Earth-approaching near-Earth asteroids, which orbits exterior to Earth, but inferior to Mars, named after asteroid 1221 Amor. Basically, one of the things that we always see, and by the way, these happen all the time, but I thought it was like, that's kind of like, we hear these stories a lot. Asteroid is flying very close to Earth. We have these all the time. But it's always, it's kind of like, like, by the way, there's a meteor shower. By the way, did you know that an asteroid is coming fairly close to Earth? I'm like, oh, I didn't know that. Okay, back to it.
And here's Gonkuworm about Apophis. We knew you'd bring up Apophis, Gonkuworm. We knew.
The prophet comes among us.
We will see. Like, it's totally possible that there is the giant asteroid Apophis. Yep. Or Apophis will come and destroy us all. So we'll see what happens. We'll see. Within the realm of possibility. I'm not thoroughly convinced, but maybe. Anyways, we'll go into the next story. So, Bono Koski. The longer the public service strike goes on, the more Canadians will suffer. There is a pity appeal aspect when striking unions, like today's massive 155,000 member Public Service Alliance of Canada walkout, go to the public with tales of how they were hard done by during negotiations, how they were given a disrespectful short shift, and how they are now having difficult times making lending ends meet, let alone putting food on the table. Today's economic crimes with high inflation help sell the image of the hard done by public servant, even if this pitch is arguably based on fiction and hyperbole. Entering the picture now with its own take on the PSAC strike is Franco Terrazzano, the federal director of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, a federally incorporated not-for-profit citizens group dedicated to lower taxes. It's a Labor Day reality check, which was months before the strike. The CTF laid it out that during the pandemic, 312,000 federal government employees received a pay raise. There have been 395,000 private sector job losses versus 149,000 new government jobs, all levels, since February 2020. In 2020, 74,000 federal bureaucrats made more than $100,000. That number grew by 5,918 during the pandemic, which is up from 43,000 in 2015. It says something about the difference between Trudeau and Harper. The federal government has no record of its employees ever receiving a pay cut, and of course there's this. The compensation for each full-time federal employee is $125,000 on average when pay, pension, and other benefits are added up, according to the parliamentary budget officer. So, yeah, you can have your striking, and I say no.
Unfortunately,
I do not support you.
Unfortunately, we know how this is going to end.
Oh yeah,
these are the voting base for Trudeau.
They are,
and Trudeau has already shown that he cares nothing about money. It's basically like he's running up the credit card, like he used in that analogy, and yeah, he's definitely going to pay to keep his supporters happy and to try to get reelected. Like we know this is stupid. We know they're entitled. It's stupid, but it's going to happen.
It's just the way it is.
Just the way it is. All right.
But speaking about stupid and things that are the way they are, let's talk about AOC.
AOC. The Barbie doll of New York City. Yeah. All right. So Daily Mail from DailyMail.com.
Barbie.
Moment AOC brags about cutting repeat violent crime in Bronx by enlisting help of former gang members and ex-Rikers inmates instead of cops. But figures show overall crime still increasing this year. AOC said making hospitals the center for responding to crime rather than police precincts has led to a dramatic reduction in serious offending. I mean, this woman is just the worst, my goodness. But the latest figures from the Bronx show felony assaults are up 10% and burglary has risen by more than 2%, with overall crime up 4% compared to 2021. By the way, people try to try fast and loose with statistics all the time. And I think overall crimes were down, but that's because they have been going up like crazy for so many years that they basically it's like you're trying to break the record each year.
Yep.
I mean, it's just crazy. So she claimed that she helped cut repeat violent crime in the Bronx by preventing cops from getting involved and enlisting ex-gangsters to help instead. But the latest figures show crime still going up. She said that hospitals, making hospitals the center for responding to crime rather than police precincts has led to a reduction. As leaders, we should focus on solutions that are working instead of what helps us look tough. She crowed in a tweet Tuesday. But obviously the statistics are on her side. But you know what? It doesn't matter if she's factually correct, Stephen. It only matters if she's emotionally correct.
Yes.
That's all that matters, really. Facts are oppressive, unless they don't work in our favor. So basically, the takeaway here, crime in New York is still a mess. New York City is the freaking worst, and unfortunately, all they can rely on is all sorts of misinformation. Try to make this case. I don't know if you can scroll down to the little chart that they have there, showing that pretty much everything except maybe murders keeps going up. That's a little chart underneath there that kind of shows us. So again, I love Daily Mail. They do a great job of giving you tons of information. There's a video. You can play the video. I know. We love
Okay, here we go for
a short thing.
Congressional Barbie.
There is a lot of discussion around what progressives can do about violence in a big city.
What the data has showed us
everything but what they're doing.
As a public health instead of as an
I don't know why it always loads.
Violence decreases. And that's what we're doing here at Jacobi Hospital.
Are there cops here at the hospital that are addressing the issue?
Hell no.
Okay.
Hell no. We want people to be robbed.
There's security presence and police presence that is standard in any hospital. But that's not what...
Is there cops here? Hell no. There's police presence here standard as any hospital.
Do they use gun? Oh, hell no. Guns that carry on. It's like, oh, good to know. Good to know.
Walls don't work except for the ones you have it around your property. Oh, hell yeah.
Oh, hell yeah. Ain't going nowhere without my security.
Yeah, my security force keeps me safe.
That's
you
right.
guys don't.
But guns never,
nobody
guns never work. Guns never work ever.
Yep. All right, let's move on to the next one just because we've had enough of Congressional Barbie. Unvaccinated woman denied organ transplant proves natural immunity in bid for life-saving procedure. The Justice Center for Constitutional Freedom's lawyer representing an unvaccinated woman who's been denied an organ transplant is demanding Alberta Health Services overturn its decision after patient Sheila Annette Lewis proved she has natural immunity. Lewis is dying of a terminal illness. She was removed from the top of the organ donor transplant list after refusing to be vaccinated against COVID-19. She's been challenging the constitutionality of the COVID-19 vaccine requirements for transplant candidates put in place by AHS and Alberta Hospital and 6 transplant doctors made for more than a year. Her counsel is now demanding that health officials accept her newly established natural immunity to COVID-19 as an alternative to vaccination and reinstate Lewis to the high-priority transplant waitlist by April 21st, which is, of course, tomorrow. Now, this is, like, I'm glad that the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms is fighting on behalf of this woman. She clearly has been discriminated against by AHS and by the former Alberta government. I find it sad that we have to go to this length. Be like, oh, like natural immunity. It's like, well, we're arguing not on the fact that our human rights were violated, because unfortunately in Alberta, it doesn't matter that your human rights are violated, because in Canada, they're like, well, Section 1 of the Charter means that the government can do whatever they want. But all they're arguing, it's just like, yep, natural immunity is the same as being vaccinated, and that means her rights cannot be violated in such a way. And I'm like, yes, I hope that she gets the thing that she needs, but it's just devastating that we have to use these methods, and it shows how depraved and immoral our culture is.
Well, it's because our culture is switching to, we have to believe absurdities now. We have to believe, like, any rational person, including I'll ask anyone in the audience, is there any logic? Like, if you're a common sense, regular, rational person, does this make sense rationally? Can a case be made? Or is this just pure absurdity? She's proven that she's naturally immune to COVID-19, but they're like, nope, you have to get a vaccine in order to protect us from COVID-19, even though we know verifiably that vaccines do not prevent transmission. Vaccines do not actually, like, you know, they only have an effect potentially, like at least they say, for the individual who takes the vaccine, not for others. So is there any logic to this? No, I don't believe so. There never was. Okay. Last story here.
Last story for the news you may have missed.
You may have missed. This is kind of cool. So this is SpaceX Starship. Elon Musk's big rocket explodes on a test flight. Now, I don't mean cool as it exploded, but it's cool that, like, he is on the cutting edge of space exploration and rocket development. I talked to somebody who knows about this stuff, and it's kind of cool to see what they're doing. But here's this was in the news this week. Elon Musk, SpaceX company's mammoth new rocket, Starship, has exploded on its maiden flight, which, again, this is not in any way like, you know, a shock. This kind of stuff does happen. No one was hurt in the uncrewed test that lifted off from Texas East Coast on Thursday morning local time. After 2 or 3 minutes into the flight, the rocket, the biggest ever developed, started to tumble out of control and was soon destroyed by onboard charges. Mr. Musk said the company will try again in a couple of months. SpaceX engineers still class Thursday's mission as a success. They like to test early and often and are not afraid to break things. They will have gathered a massive data to work towards the next flight. The second Starship is almost ready to take flight. Congrats a SpaceX team on an exciting test launch of Starship. Learned a lot for next test launch in a few months. So, big takeaway from this is that, and my buddy who, like, you know, my buddy wants to actually go into aeronautical engineering. Like, he wants to work with spacecraft design. Okay, he said that one of the coolest, trends now is that for a long time, NASA, which is government funded and government run, was hamstrung because they basically relied on government funding and they had to keep public interest. So basically funding was always really hard to justify. But now we're in an era where private funding from private, people everywhere is now running this. And thankfully, because it's privately funded, that means that these things can be fully funded with the best personnel and the most innovative people, which means that we're now actually making decent strides into both rocket design, innovation, about satellites and even like projects about going to Mars. So this is a good thing.
Yep.
And I'm glad that Elon Musk is away. SpaceX is amazing. I don't know if you can scroll down there, Stephen, like in that article. Recommend you guys go through this. The article is really cool because it even shows you some of the rockets and how they're how they've kind of evolved over the years. It shows the actual look what the rocket looked like. It shows you some examples of what these rockets how they've kind of developed over the years. There's some really cool info. So check it out. Definitely worth looking into. It's a very cool thing that they're doing space exploration when for a long time it had died. Any kind of efforts to check this kind of stuff out, for the most part, we're over. But I'm glad it's still going.
Yep. Very interesting. Very nifty.
All right, let's move into our last segment, Stephen.
Yep. Our weekly highlight first. So the weekly highlight this week is an individual that we're going to be showing on Not the Bee. And I don't think we actually know this guy's name, but it's just an interesting video and it's worth watching. So, 3-year-old's video has been going viral on Instagram, YouTube, and now Twitter because it shows an elderly black man who was invited on a reality YouTube show and paired up with a drag queen to dance. His refusal to participate in the dance instead of his beliefs is inspiring a lot of people. So let's just watch.
Why don't we just pair up?
I'm not into touching, okay? I'm not. Let me put that out front. I'm no touching, no touching.
No touching. I won't touch you. I was paired up with Isaac. He was like, no touching. I was like, oh, this is gonna be fun.
The music will start. The boys will turn around. So,
right.
Gentlemen, let's turn. Gorgeous. And then we start walking.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 3, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then maybe let's look at the gentleman. Gentlemen, you guys can acknowledge us. Ooh, who is this? Cool.
Oh, I'm sorry. I can't do this. I can't do this. I'm sorry. I'm a man of God. I can't do this.
Oh, no.
Yeah, man, brother.
I love those people. I pray for them. I would never do anything to hurt them or condemn them. But men are not supposed to dress like women. I'm not going to go along with that. It's time to stand up and be a man of God.
Amen, brother. Amen.
Yeah.
That's the kind of stuff you like to see.
That's the kind of stuff you want to see.
See, the only thing and it's not a complaint about him. It's that I find it so sad that people have to put a caveat in whatever they say. They have to add a little disclaimer saying I don't hate anybody and I'm not against people or all this kind of stuff before they can actually say their actual opinion.
Yeah.
Right. If you really put it down, just in the most basic terms, really the people that should be apologizing should be the people in the LGBT community to Christians.
Yep.
Because if I actually took the time, I could probably do one thing of mad research. I could probably find you 100 examples, easy, legitimate examples of LGBT activists or people that have done horrific things to Christians over the last 10 years. I could find you easily 100 examples of really horrific things that LGBT, people of that community have done, right? And then you would be hard-pressed to find a legitimate, very obvious example of a very hateful or horrible action of a Christian against an actual member of the LGBT community. That what they have to create, examples,
they really have to
and
look
they're
for
always
it.
And they're always they have to stretch it. They're like, well, this person said homophobic things. I'm like, what did he say? Well, he said he disagrees with what I do. I'm like, okay, that's not hateful, and that's not evil, and that's not even they're like, well, it's mean to me because I'm offended. I'm like, so I find it odd that people who are people of faith have to they feel somehow they have to be careful, like, oh, I'm somehow the mean person. We need to get out of that mindset that we have to apologize to them before we can even share our opinions. Like, no. Okay? I care about the Christian community and I care about the LGBT community. And honestly, the LGBT community has done some very horrific things to the Christian community for over 10 years. And I have a right to feel like, protective of my community and the people that are affected by this other community. Okay? So I think that good on this guy. Thankful that he stood up. And I hope that more and more people are encouraged to stand up and say unapologetically, I have a right to say I don't agree with this. And I have a right to say that without being like labeled or slandered as horrible, evil, horrible person. It's funny how people call you that while doing the very thing that they accuse of. Anyway, Stephen, any thoughts you have on this guy?
No, everything you summarized it fairly well. This guy, yeah, like I'm totally with you that it's kind of sad that we can't just say nope. Like this is what I believe and this is how I'm going to stand behind it. Mm-hmm. And like, yes, we want to be loving. We want to be showcasing that there is a better way, that there are better choices that people can make with their lives.
Yeah.
But we're not going to going along with evil and corruption and deviant behavior isn't loving.
Yeah.
And a lot of people need to realize that. Like, I've been told by so many people when regards to some of these LGBTQ trans issues, be like, well, why don't you just use their preferred pronouns? Like, that's being nice. And it's like, well,
no, it's because they're asking you to lie.
They're asking me to lie, and rejecting reality is not being nice.
Not to mention that it's like you have to also understand it properly. What are they asking you to do? It's like if you run into a Muslim and the Muslim says like, oh, Allah, and I could say like Jesus is God. It would be like me telling the Muslim, you have to say Jesus is God.
Yeah.
Or else I'll be offended. I'm like, that would be wrong. Like, it really would be. Or me saying to an atheist, by the way, God exists. You have to say it. You have to say that God exists. Oh, I don't believe that. I don't care if you believe it or not. You have to say it to please me and so you avoid offending me. That's what they're doing. They're basically telling you, I don't care if you believe that men can become women and women can become men. I don't care if you believe it or not. You're saying it whether you believe it or not. They're like, I believe it, and so you have to say, you have to use language that basically affirms what I believe. And whatever you believe, totally be darned. Like Ana Kasparian, which the lady from the Young Turks, ran into this head first. She doesn't like being called a what do they want to call her, like a birthing person or a cisgender or whatever. She doesn't like being called that. And she said, if you want me to respect
no rational
you,
person should.
No, exactly. But like she's actually like on the left, and she said, you want me to respect you in your preferred terms, you should respect me. And they immediately said like, no, you can't. Like, what you want and what you desire is irrelevant. That is the mantra that they're saying. What you believe doesn't matter. You have to basically say what I believe. They're basically the Queen of Hearts from Alice in Wonderland.
Yep. And of course, going along with this idea of we demand that you believe what we believe, or we will do something that is harmful or negligent or dangerous to you.
Yeah.
This video has been making the rounds on Twitter.
And it just came out today.
It just came out today. So, like,
brace yourselves.
Brace yourselves. Is some of the material on this video is illegal.
Yeah.
I hope that we don't get any repercussions because of this, but we do have to showcase everything that's going on, because if we try and cover up, if we try and conceal what's going on, then we're not being truthful in how we're covering what's happening in the world around us.
Oh, yeah.
So this is video released from a trans individual and just watching horror.
If you back a wild animal into a corner, they're going to become a dangerous animal. So if you want to die on that hill of yours of righteousness and moral majority, then you go right ahead. I dare you to try and stop me from going into a women's bathroom. It will be the last mistake you ever make. I dare you to try and stop a transgender woman in my presence from using the bathroom. it will be the last mistake you ever make. This is a call to action and a call to arms to everybody within the United States that are scared, worried, have children that are transgender, lesbian, bi, or gay. This is a call to action. You need to arm up. Plain and simple. Go out, buy a gun. Learn how to use it efficiently, through and through. Because the time to act is now. You need to protect yourself, and you need to protect your fellow transgender brothers and sisters and theys and thems. You need to protect the rest of us in the LGBT community, as I'm going to do myself. Because there are lots of people like me who are not afraid to die. I love my girlfriends to death, but I would rather die for them to secure their safety, freedom, and future than to live and not have anything done. So you go ahead. You protect your kids.
Yep. That's pretty dangerous.
That's extremely dangerous.
Like, there's a difference, because they tried to use this individual tried to use very specific language. They tried to use, it's to protect. It's to make sure that people feel safe, but that's not what they're doing. What they're doing is, you try and stop me not from living, not from being in my own home. You try and stop me from living. You try and stop me from exercising a basic human right to life or to vote or to anything like this. No, what people are stopping them from doing, or trying to stop them from doing, is from potentially preying on women, potentially preying on children, as has happened multiple times in multiple areas, such as we discussed about the Kenyon Middle School here in Calgary, such as incidents. Actually, we'll just jump right into the next story. Incidents like what happened out in BC, as detailed by the Post Millennial. So, trans-identified male accused of spying on girls in changing room at Nanaimo PC pool is a convicted pedophile. A trans-identified male accused of spying on girls has been identified by local residents as a convicted pedophile. In February, Janaea Wright was threatened with arrest after confronting a male wearing a wig whom she alleges was peeking under her daughter's stall at the Nanaimo Aquatic Center. The male claimed to be entitled to be in the changing room on the grounds of human rights. Wright reported this incident to management but was told it was indeed the trans-identified male's right to be in the female changing room. Wright told Redux the staff warned her she could be arrested for moving the male from the women's changing room. She then reported the incident to the police. With the help of local residents, Redux has revealed that the individual is a convicted pedophile who goes by the name of Kylie Otter, sometimes spelled Riley or Riley. In 2019, at the age of 28, Otter was sentenced to 14 months in jail and 24 months probation for sexual interference against a young person. He confessed to touching an 8-year-old girl for sexual purposes on 9 separate occasions. This abuse happened between December 2015 and September 2016 while the pedophile was in position of trust. The girl informed her parents of the abuse, who then reported it to the RCMP. Otter pleaded guilty to all charges in 2017. The convicted pedophile began identifying as a woman in 2018. And the case drew national attention in 2018 when the victim's mother read an impact statement during the sentencing hearing in Kelowna, stating that her daughter has been severely traumatized by the abuse. As a result of the trauma, she continues to have nightmares. She does not feel comfortable walking to school alone or with her siblings. She fears being in public places because she does not want to run into the offender. Like, I really, really feel for this little girl. And it's apparent that this individual wants to continue their pattern of deviant and deplorable behavior and wants to continue preying on young women. And because of the Canadian Human Rights Tribunal, because of all these things that allow these trans-identifying individuals to go into whatever change room they see fit, they can do so without fear of recourse. Conqueror, what happened to the girl in Calgary that had meant walking in on her at the YMCA? I don't think anything. As far as I know, as long as they identify as a man, as a woman, there's nothing that the YMCA, there's nothing that the city or the police can do.
Nope, because they justify it under the human rights laws and legislation. That's how they justify it. Whenever they're questioned about it, whenever they're like can you justify this in any way? Like, oh yeah, human rights. That's their go-to. So basically, what people do is that not my problem. Someone else. It's the pilot, like in the Bible, when he just washes his hands. Well, I'm not responsible for this. Someone else is responsible for this evil, and you can just basically accept it as as a thing essentially. Yep. That's the basic thing behind it. Stephen, can you do me a quick favor? And I normally wouldn't ask about this, but I sent you something on Messenger. Just find the video that I Twitter. This is something that I found recently, and maybe I don't know if you can play it because it has a song, very common song, but maybe you can mute it after.
I'll mute it.
Like that. Yeah, but this is a video that somebody created, and it's the kind of thing where I want to make sure people know there's a dark underworld that is very present and there. Okay. That
so the one on the left.
The more you delve into it, the one on the left, yeah.
Okay, so I'll just mute it.
No, actually, play the first part. Just, yeah, now you can mute it if you want, but keep playing. So basically, and you can put it in full screen.
Yeah,
people can watch this. Okay, so basically, somebody put a compilation, and what they did is they did some research on all sorts of people who identify as transgender, and they showed some incredible stats that people are not aware of. So they compiled all of the, and by the way, every one of these you freeze it, and you can actually find you can actually look up these articles.
The stories.
You can find all the stories that they're listing, all of the incidents of these are transgender identifying people who have committed
went to women's prisons and raped
pretty
people.
Horrific crimes. One of the things I face all the time whenever we're talking about Drag Queen Story Hour online, people will always post all these articles about these Christian pastors or people, and some of them are from 10 years ago or just crazy. This was something that was insane. There's a trend, a TikTok trend, of people who actually go to the restrooms and they masturbate openly. These are men dressed like women who go into women's restrooms and they will actually masturbate. Ugh. And it's an actual thing. They will literally do it on purpose. It's a fetish because part of it is autogynephilia. Mm-hmm. So you tell me if these are safe people. And by the way, this is not about hatred. This is a lot of these people are very. They're very disturbed people with mental health. And this is not in any ways even speculation. There is a very, very documented trend of all sorts of mental health issues of people that are identified or diagnosed as transgender. It's like people say oh, you're just trying to pretend, you're just trying to say that every transgender person is dangerous. And no, we're not saying that. But if you actually look at the numbers percentage wise, because Stephen, you found out what was the number of transgender individuals in the United States. You did the
the math.
You looked it up. You did the math.
Okay, so according to self-identification, there are 1.3 million, which I think is way too high.
Yes. Okay, so there's 1.2 million. Okay, percentage-wise of compared to any other community, and whether it's the Filipino community, whether it's the Iranian community, whatever it is, whether it's the Islamic community, the percentage of transgender individuals identified and criminality is staggering. I remember looking at some of the stats of that, and even I was surprised at how the numbers were of criminality and being charged for pedophilia or something like that. And again, this is just more that this is worth taking precautions. Okay. And you see that individual right at the beginning of the segment who basically said, he's basically saying, I'm planning to, or at least he's basically saying, I'm planning to hurt people at the very least, if not murder people. At the worst.
If this individual is saying this would be the last mistake, then heavily implied on murder.
Yes, he basically said I'm going to kill people because he said he's going to arm up and there's going to be serious consequences. But anybody who looks at that sees he's a man and a very, like a bigger, looking man, like tall and probably like very, very like strong. And he's going to go into, and he's saying, I'm willing to go into women's bathrooms with women who are much less able to defend themselves against a man like him, and children. And he's willing to use guns because he said he's going to arm up. This is the kind of dangerous people that we're seeing.
Yep.
And the worst part is these individuals in these communities are being told two things. One, they're being told that there's a genocide. They want to eliminate
to
you.
eradicate.
Like they
they proudly try and say and cite Michael Knowles, even though he said nothing of the sort.
Exactly. And this is the rhetoric that's being thrown out there. And these people, by the way, these are people who are they should be people that need help. They really do. A lot of these people need help. A lot of these people are very depressed and they're very traumatized and troubled. And we're not calling for them to just be erased from society. We want them to get help, but they're offering them basically yes to everything that you want. Yes to going into women's bathrooms. Yes to going on sports teams. Yes to everything you want is yours. And we're going to punish and penalize people who get in your way. That is a recipe for disaster. If you told a schizophrenic person that everyone's trying to kill you, that person is now more likely to become dangerous because they may believe it. And that is dangerous to do, feeding people these kind of ideas. And remember, a lot of these people live in absolutely rock solid echo chambers where the only people that they interact with, the only people that they meet regularly are people that tell them, you're great, you're wonderful as you are, there's nothing wrong with you, and there's a dangerous group out there that wants to hurt you and hurt people in your community. That is a recipe for disaster. And the sad thing is, most of these people, I think a lot of people in the trans community are probably just people who are really scared. They're just really scared. And they've been scared by bad actors who really don't care about them. And so that's something that we should be considering. But again, you have to remember, there are forces at play here that people in positions of power that are pushing this, that they're reinforcing this, and that they're supporting this, and people are going to get hurt. And sadly, the people at the very top who have the positions of power, who are pushing this, they don't care because, again, like we said before, they're anti-life. They hate humans, and they don't care if people die. And the people on the ground, the trans people who are being, who are literally being encouraged and inflamed to basically, lash out in violence, they're basically being used like pawns. It's sad. It really is sad. But you have to remember too that these people are now getting dangerous. It's like I talked to my friend who loves animals. But one of the things he hates is when people say, "Oh, animals like dogs. Oh, you should never own this kind of dogs." Like, no. There are dogs that if they're not properly trained and not properly if you don't know how to train a dog properly and how to keep them in proper check, then yes, that dog can become dangerous. And I'm not saying that they're dogs. I'm just saying that if you have a vulnerable and easily exploited group of people, and you keep feeding them lies about how they're in danger and all that, they're going to lash out. And this individual is an example of somebody who's going to lash out if we keep going the way they are. So on the one hand, we need to take precautions because there are people out there who are now emboldened to lash out in anger. And on the other hand, we have to fight this because this is not morally neutral. There's a very, very dangerous aspect of what's going on because they're hurting trans people and they're hurting innocent regular people, and they're basically we're all being played right now. It's sad. Stephen, any thoughts on?
No, I'm just having
on the trans. Kind of going on the chat.
Good going on the chats. So no,
that's fun.
This is so going on the chat. We're talking about subjective morality. So Kissing Gonzo is saying that it's wrong to condemn any action that's outside of our individual actions or individual experiences, but we have to,
I condemn what the Nashville shooter did.
Yep. No, we have to be able to say that there is actions and there are actions which are universally wrong. And of course, it's not one person And I'm with Conquer Worm on this. It's not one person, it's not one government that defines what is wrong. It is only that which comes outside of humanity, because humanity is inherently corrupt and inherently wicked, and it is only that which is pure and that which is noble and that which is true and that which is loving, which is not humanity. It's not us. It's only God.
Yeah. I think somebody in the chat said that the ones that are masturbating have the moral high ground.
Certainly higher moral high ground.
Yes. And by the way, I'm sorry that I had to show you that. When I found that out, I'm like, that's a thing?
Yeah.
And I'm like, yes. And then, by the way, there are so many videos out there of this. This is, you have to remember that and I think many commentators have pointed this out. There are 3 kinds of people in that group of called the trans group. Okay, there are 3 people. Number 1, is there something you want to point out?
Oh no, like this last comment. Oh my gosh, they're not following their true needs and desires. What? What if a person claims that their true needs or desires are to go and like
masturbate in public?
Well,
out in the open.
To go and do this in public, and then not only to do that in public, but to go and attack another person, to go and slash them up and put their body parts into little bags. What if that's their true needs and desires? Of course, you're saying that because you believe in subjective reality, you can't condemn the actions of anyone else. Subjective reality allows any action for any reason, because you can't condemn the actions of any other person. This is why we need objective truths. This is why we need objective reality. There must be an absolute moral right and wrong.
Yeah.
Otherwise, slavery is permissible, genocide is permissible, everything. The true needs and desires of a praying man is supposed to be that.
Okay, I will say this, and this is a generally, like, you know, it's a good faith kind of like.
Yeah, it is. We appreciate the back and forth.
Yes. One thing I've noticed, and I like to say this to anybody who's who would describe themselves as an ally, okay, an ally of the LGBT community, okay. One thing that I don't think people see, because there's an echo chamber effect. They never talk to people outside of their groups.
Yep.
Question is, one thing I've noticed, and that's that people who are usually within that group don't notice, is that there's a demand within that community that you have to affirm everything. You cannot reject anything. So the question I have for you, Kissing Gonzo, is there any action whatsoever that a trans person could do that you would say that is wrong and I condemn it?
Yeah.
Any action at all?
Well, or even like saying, like this person we talked about on the Post Millennial, like this person that touched an 8-year-old inappropriately.
Yeah.
That was like, is that their true needs and their desires? Like, is that not can we not condemn that? Is that not something that I'll read that in just a second. It's just behind my camera. But these are there have to be things that are wrong that everyone can agree on. Because otherwise we can't move forward as a society. If we can't decide what's right and what's wrong, if it's just like some moral, then we are going to inevitably decay into anarchy and lawlessness if you can't decide what's right and what's wrong. Because then you'll get incidents like what happened in Calgary on March 4th. I go back to this incident fairly frequently. Because those in authority, because the police refused to act, then people, like, there were protesters who were opposing a transgender individual going into a bathroom, and they tried to push a man into the LGBT protesters tried to push another guy into the street. They tried to kill him.
They would have killed him.
Yeah.
Because,
yeah.
Yeah.
If the police didn't arrest anybody, they're just like, oh, please don't do that. If you continue to do these things, then maybe we'll take an action. Maybe if that person actually gets hurt, then we'll take an action.
Yeah.
And it's all under the impression of, well, we can't condemn this because that's their lived experience.
Yeah. Yeah. The one thing that I've noticed, and again, like Kissing Gonzo they're just not answering the question. Is there any, and it's a very simple question, is there anything a trans person can do to someone else that you would say that is wrong and I condemn it? Is there any action that they can do that you would say no? And the reason I ask that is because I have literally asked this to people in the community, and they cannot give me an answer. They always like avoid it. They deny that, like, you know, and they try to obfuscate. They never answer the question. The reason is because there is a trend within, like, in this falls within the BLM community. This falls between the LGBT community. This falls within even Antifa. They don't condemn anything that anyone on their side does. And that is a characteristic, not of a thinking and a rational person, but of a cult.
Yeah. It's not an outlier. It's the norm.
That's a cult behavior. And I don't think people see it.
Yeah.
Right. Because I'm in that. Okay. People, for example, people have called me and said, like, called me out and said, like, well, what about, like, you know, child beauty pageants? And I'm like, yeah, I don't think those are right. I would condemn them. I would actually be like, you know, if somebody tried to do a child
a protest against that.
No. If somebody tried to do a child beauty pageant here in Calgary, I'd be like, yeah, that's not cool, and I would join a protest against that. I'd be happy to condemn it. That's because on the right, people are willing to say, like, yeah, I condemn that behavior. If there's a Christian that does something horrible and actually beats up somebody in the LGBT community, I would condemn it. I'd be like, that person is wrong. That person deserves to be charged. And I hope that if it's proven that they are definitely the people that did it, and, you know, like that, according to the law, I would be like, yeah, they definitely should be charged. But the funny thing is, that is something that only seems to happen in the conservative community. It does not happen in the leftist you know, groupthink. It doesn't, and it's by experience. I've seen it. I've talked to people. They refuse to condemn anybody on their side. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, still won't do it.
Yeah, they just won't condemn. So let me give you a very simple one. If you just keep super simple. If we find out that there is a trans individual who raped a child, and it was proven without a shadow of a doubt, this trans individual raped a child, would you say that trans individual, I condemn what they've done, and I think that they deserve to go to jail if it's proven that they're wrong? Would you condemn that person?
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that maybe that this is one of the few people that actually will be, but I don't think that they will.
No.
And it's sad because it's part of the mindset. And this is part of the reason why this is dangerous, because anyone who, like I've said this before, Justin Trudeau, I don't believe that he is just wrong. I believe that he's evil and he's dangerous. Why? Because if you follow his behavior and the way that he talks and the way that he deals with anything, he never, ever takes responsibility for anything that he does. It's always someone else's fault. It's always some excuse, something else. He never takes responsibility for a single thing that he does. And that is a recipe for a dangerous person, because a dangerous person is someone who never believes that they do anything wrong, which means that they will continue to do the things, and eventually they'll eventually do something horrible. This is dangerous people. And unfortunately, people in the trans community have been told that everything that you do is justifiable, every single thing.
Yeah. Well,
okay.
Still won't, like, this is what obfuscation. I'm sorry, but that's ridiculous. You can't condemn somebody raping a child. That's ridiculous. And then you say, oh, this is the imbalance of throwing. This is not a complex question.
Not really.
A child and raping a child is wrong 100% of the time, period, done. I have 4 kids.
Yeah.
It is wrong for anybody to come into my family, come into my home and try and do inappropriate behavior, inappropriate relations with my children.
Yeah,
you're going to find the wrong end of a baseball bat. And I would not be wrong in doing so. It is wrong to violate other people. There is... Oh, emotions are fun. Yes, emotions are fun when you talk about it. You're saying it's okay to rape kids.
Yeah.
Like, I have no words for how nasty that is.
Yeah. See, this is the problem. Like, you know, the problem is that people, when they can't make an argument, they resort to
trolling
and mockery. It's trolling. Of course, it's trolling.
Yeah.
And like,
it's like the person last week.
We're rational people. Yeah.
It's the person last week that was like, "Oh, what is that? What is that? Like, it's nonsense.
That's right. Yeah. So the basic premise here is that this is now becoming popularized. Okay, it's popular to basically say horrible things online, and we've done a segment on it. We did it a while ago. We called it the segment "Cowboys and Indians," and you remember that, Stephen. The segment has basically made the claim back in the 50s, in the Lone Ranger and all these shows. The basic premise of all those TV shows, the Westerns era, is that cowboys are the good guys and Indians are the bad guys. The second an Indian shows up, what do they do? They take out their guns, like, oh, look out, the Indians, right? That and it's a very simplistic view of good and evil. Is the cowboys are always the good guys. Everything that they do is justifiable and good. The Indians are always the bad guys, and everything that they do is automatically evil and condemnable, right? We are now living in an era where we have the same exact premise. People on the left, people who are from the LGBT community and the allies, they believe that they are always the good guys. Nothing they do is ever evil. Nothing that they say is ever condemnable. They basically believe that everything that they do is justified. And that includes, and this is why they're getting to the point where they're actually making threats. They're actually calling for violence. They're going out, shooting up schools, and they're beating up people, and they're actually even threatening to go and murder people in bathrooms because they won't affirm or they won't accept their demands, right? These are the signs of people. They and by the way, this comes from a Marxist worldview. I know people don't believe that, but I've studied this. This is where this comes from. Queer theory emerged from the Frankfurt School. This is exactly where it came from. The ideology is that there's oppressors and the oppressed, and the oppressed can never ever be the bad guys. And you live it, and unfortunately, Kissing Gonzo is living in that reality. They will never condemn their own side. They will never condemn anybody in their own side because they believe absolutely that they're always the good guys. They're always right. And everything that they do is justified. That is a recipe for disaster. And that is a recipe for evil. And unfortunately, many people are too blind to see that. Now, for the conservatives out there, I encourage you, it's getting worse. But we don't want you to fight evil with evil. Don't become contaminated, because one of the most dangerous things is being overcome by evil. Yes, there's people out there who are going to say horrible things, but I encourage you, not only stay above the fray, stay above board, and but also remember that you have to start taking more precautions because they're getting more bold and more aggressive, and this is coming to everyone. All right, they're coming through the schools, they're coming through the government, they're coming everywhere. You have to start being proactive and get off the bench, because they're coming. The fire is coming to your house. Yep, and you have to be ready for it, because they're not stopping, and they're going to. It's eventually going. And by the way, I'm not even the first person to say this. This has been said for ages now by so many people who have warned that this is coming, and unfortunately, it's getting very close. Stephen, any thoughts?
No, I'm. It's just ridiculous what people refuse to condemn these days. It's totally absolutely nonsensical. I think back to the asking that individual in the street to get him to say that twerking in a thong in front of a 3-year-old is wrong, and he's like, nope, it's not wrong. And I'm like, see, this is why you want to hide what you're doing, and this is why we want to expose you.
Yeah, Stephen, let's do a fun little exercise. I'm going to ask you a question, and you tell me if you just for fun, just to show that this is doable. It's not even that hard. If we found out that there was a Christian who fondled a kid, would you condemn that?
Yes.
Yes. If we found out that a Christian had murdered a kid because he was a different race, would you condemn that?
100%.
If you found out that a Christian beat up an old grandmother because she did not acknowledge his beliefs, would you condemn that?
Of course.
Like, it's not hard.
No.
This is the test, and this is the test that we always give. They make it sound like it's an impossible question. Oh, it's impossible to answer this. It's like, do you think if a trans person, like, you know, raped and murdered a child, would you condemn that? Like, whoa, hold on, that's too crazy. That never happens.
Well, no, like we're not even. We're saying this is we're putting the fact that this is hypothetical, and yes, it unfortunately does happen. But if saying that violating another person's rights by attacking them, by doing heinous things to them, is a purity test, then so be it.
Yeah, it's not hard to do. If I wanted to be a friend, and I find out that, like, you know, like, yeah, I like torture babies. I'm like,
I torture babies.
Friendship over. You know, friendship over. We're not. Not only are we not going to be friends, I'm definitely going to be calling the cops.
Yeah,
you know,
like there's a difference. There's a difference in extremes. Like, I got mad at a friend of mine because, of course, we live in Calgary, and he's like, oh, like anyone that cheers for the Maple Leafs, my favorite team, like anyone that cheers for the Maple Leafs, like I don't even want to be associated with them, nevertheless friends with them. And I'm like, what kind of nonsense are you pushing? Like, what sort of a trivial thing are you arguing for? Oh, if you cheer for this hockey team, like we can't even be friends. What kind of priority do you put on something like, I like watching hockey. I go kind of nuts when the Leafs go to the playoffs. Like I went a little nuts today when they won. Yes, it was awesome. I had my kids cheering with me. It was a lot of fun. But if my friend cheers for Montreal Canadiens, like the hated rival of my team, I don't treat them any differently aside from a gentle ribbing.
Yeah.
And there's no reason that you should, because that's a minor issue. There's a difference between a minor conflict and a major conflict. If you have a major conflict with somebody, like we had with that individual last week, the individual last week said it was okay to start towards a racial genocide of black people. And we're like, oh, no. We are not supportive of that. That's crazy.
No, not at all. It's crazy talk, yeah.
That's crazy.
So, so like one thing I will say, they said that, you know, if someone doesn't agree with you or they instantly place in the day. The funny thing is, I have a lot of friends who I very strongly disagree with. But the funny thing is, most of them are conservatives, or at least somewhat outside of the leftist, like, you know, cult. The question is, do you have any friends that are not part of your leftist ideology? Anyone that you disagree with? Because one of the common things is if you're in the left, and by the way, this is descriptive because I've seen it countless times, is that if you're in the left, if someone disagrees with you, you instantly like block them and remove them from your life. And by the way, that only goes one way. There's seldom a story of a conservative that literally like it removes an actual leftist family member or friend or acquaintance just because they disagree. But we see it all the time from parents or friends or siblings or whatever who basically shun their friends because, oh, you voted for the conservatives, you voted for the Republicans, you're dead to me. It's like, wow, you're a reasonable person, very reasonable person. It happens a lot.
Yeah.
By the way, leftist is a very generic term, but it usually describes somebody who believes in woke ideology.
Yes.
And people who follow that trend. People who there's a very, very identifiable category. All right. So considering that you basically like agree, and I would say you sound like you're an ally. Would you say you're an ally of LGBT people?
I would say if he's saying that woke is not an ideology,
100%. Yeah, woke is not an ideology. I give you a break.
What is woke?
Yeah. Anyways, like Joe Biden's like, hey, brother. You know, like Antifa's just an idea. It's not an actual thing. Like, yeah, okay, Uncle Joe. Good luck with that one.
Yeah,
it's an idea.
Yeah. Nothing really truly exists. Everything is a myth. Right. No. Anyways, right. It's already been like 2 hours and a quarter. Like, come on, man.
Not a joke. Not a joke.
Yeah, legitimately used. Well done.
Well done. Find me a little girl to.
All right. Yeah. So that's where we're going to end today. It's just like, it's already past probably 10:20. So Can't go on forever. I've been up since 5. So, if you want to follow us on our very good conversation. Let's just put it that way. We thank everybody for participating in the chats, even those who disagree with us. We have a varied opinion. No, we're not scared. We're not trying to censor you, but if your positions are ridiculous, we're going to go after you. It's just
we go after bad ideas. We don't go after people.
Yes,
right.
It is acceptable to disagree. That's why we haven't blocked you.
That's right.
Which happens frequently, and that's what happened when I even mildly criticized when the left went after Matt Walsh and tried to say that death threats against him and his family were a good thing.
Absolutely.
So yeah, most of them blocked me for even questioning that. But anyways, so if you want to follow us on our other video platforms, YouTube, BitChute, and Rumble is the way to go. And of course, yes, Veldrein is correct. Wokeness started decades ago. It actually predominantly took mainstream pop prominence after, I believe it was Michael Brown.
Yeah, just a really quick summary because I've done a little dive into this.
We get distracted.
Most of the, I'm sorry. Just because it's where I can make it. Basically, most of the ideas that are very prominent today and originated in like the Frankfurt School, like universities, they were propagated. That they weren't very big, but they were spreading. They were really they basically went viral in 2016 with the help of the algorithms on social media. That's how they exploded onto the scene. That's how they exploded everywhere else. It's all trackable. By the way, I recommend if anybody hasn't, look up James Lindsay. He has a podcast. He has a lot of videos. He talks about all this stuff, and he goes into incredible detail. It's amazing. It suddenly makes sense when you understand the source of all these things. Just so you know, look up James Lindsay. I recommend him highly. You won't be sorry. He's incredibly educational. Anyway, sorry, Stephen.
Anyways, so yeah, if you want to check out YouTube, BitChute, Rumble, we usually post most of our videos on BitChute and Rumble. YouTube is for more like
I would say
less sensitive content.
We can't post this one here on YouTube.
Well, it's already being streamed on YouTube, so good luck to us.
We're screwed. It's all over.
I'll probably just take it down and then
you should
re-upload segments of it. So we'll see. Anyways, if you want to follow us on our text platforms, we're on Facebook, Getter, Twitter, and Parler. Twitter has become so much more fun lately since Elon took over. All hail Elon.
Been wonderful. Yeah.
So, and then if you want to be involved with any of our other contents, our Man on the Street interviews, our stuff, our one-on-one discussions, which we have with local leaders about modern topics, then send us a message, comment, all sorts of that stuff.
Yeah. By the way, every link and everything that you saw.
Yep.
Including all the articles that we post, including
will
a lot of
be
resources
in the description of the video.
But all the links of all our social media sites are on the website, so feel free to go there if you want to find where we post things.
Yes. Anyways, I am quite tired. That's why I'm just like blah, 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 blah.
Get to bed, boy. Get to bed, boy.
Yes, I will get to bed.
I say
on my anniversary weekend. I've been looking forward to this weekend for quite some time. Going out to Canmore with the wife. Yay.
Oh, yeah. He's going to have some fun.
Fun. All right. Thank you, Conqueror. 7 years. Happy Annie. Little Annie. All right. So, Daddy, sign us out.
Hey, guys. We're the Screwed Dudes. We love to do this. This is a passion project of ours. We love to research. We love to share everything that we know. We want people to be better educated, more knowledgeable, and to have better ability to respond intelligently and to all the stuff that's out there. So our catchphrase as always is, at the Shrewd Dudes, we like to remind you, why be rude when you can be shrewd instead. Thank you for watching and listening. We'll see you guys on Tuesday, regular Tuesday News Day, and we hope you have a great weekend. We'll see you again next week. God bless.